Hello. I got to get Megan, one of my coordinators is joining. She's going to join on there and help me with the PowerPoint, I hope. Best laid plans. We had it all, we've been practiced this morning and we just realized that it was on the wrong link. We had practiced on an advising link and I had sent you guys the advising link May 2021. So Megan's scrambling, trying to help get my poll questions in there maybe. Did you get in it, Megan?
No.
Okay.
It's your venue Gmail, right?
Yeah, it should be. We'll go ahead and just do it and then I'll just ask questions verbally. We'll just do the best we can do this time. We'll add it for Thursday maybe. So, because I don't want to hold them up. This is 11:31.
Okay.
So thanks. Megan's going to help me run I'm glad all of you are here. So I can't see everybody, but I can see some of you. I tried really hard to think about Megan, you can go ahead and start pulling it up.
Yeah, I am.
Great, thanks. Tried to think about what would be the best things to cover just to kind of be as a refreshing. It looks like it's recording, Megan, so I think we're good there too. So, so I tried to think about things that we get questions on, or maybe that we still have questions on, or we still review sometimes. So hopefully we'll hit something. Maybe you'll learn something new today. Maybe it'll just be refresher things for you. So I hope you find it helpful. We're going to start first with the number one things we get questions on are placement and the pathways. So I don't know if you have trouble with that. It used to be that English and reading were tough, learning the pathways, and we got those kind of cleaned up a little bit, and then math got a little bit harder with the pathways. So to start with, we're going to go through and look a little bit at the placements and talk a little bit about the pathways for math, and then as well as how you place a student. The first pathway is for AS transfer students. So this is for students that are planning to go on and receive a bachelor's degree. This is the Vincennes and Jasper campus. So those main campuses that we have, the classes that we offer start with Math 008. That's our beginning developmental. And then MATT 107 along with 017. And then it can go into MATH 102 with 022, or 103 with 023, or 112 with 032. I should have said, hey, welcome everybody. Let me go back and we'll do that. Welcome to everybody that I can't see, like I said, everybody on the same page. It's sheets of different views, so you can't see everybody, and it's kind of unusual because you're just talking to a silent room. My name is Gay Walthall. I am the director of the Student Success Center here on the Vincennes campus. And Megan Williams is one of my coordinators, and she is helping me run the PowerPoint, or Google Slides, I should say. It's not a PowerPoint. So hopefully, like I said, we're going to review a few things with you, and then I'll try to get you to ask questions. If you have questions along the way, yeah, there we go. You can do chats. Nellie, there will not be handouts, but I'm going to show you at the end where you can get to handouts that will help you. We have worked really hard. We have a new exciting thing to show you today where we've tried to centralize things for advisors, and we're going to show you that at the end. And many of these pathways will be there, so that will be handouts that you could print out, and I've got those all uploaded there, so I'll show you that at the end. They won't look exactly like this, but they are the ones that we've used before. Great question. If you guys want to put your questions in the chat along the way, or I'll try to pause if you want to ask me questions. I'm going to try to take as many as we can as we go through it, but still move along. If we get to the end and you still have questions, I'll probably say, send those to me and we'll be glad to try to address those and send them out, answer them that way, okay? So the math pathway, again, for an AS transfer student, usually is going to be Math 008, MATT 107, 017, and then MATH 102, 022. Of course, those 100 level math classes must be passed with a C or higher to move to the next level. One of the changes that happened this fall was when we moved to the new MATT 107, students are no longer given the AccuPlacer retest at the end of the semester for MATT 017 or MATT 019. Mandy, as I go through this, I see that you're on here now. Please feel free to add in anything else that you want to, that maybe we miss, okay? So then we also, one of the things that Mandy had given out, Mandy Hay, the department chair for math, had given out a great little handout that kind of compared Math 102 and Math 103. Now I know that there are some majors that specifically want one of these or the other, but there are many AS transfer degrees that will say just 100 level math. So if you've got a student that, hated algebra, you might really, if there's an option for them, you might want to direct them towards that Math 103. So kind of, sometimes students will say, well, what's the difference? So here's some things for you to know the differences between them. Math 102 has a lot more graphing, more than just lines, and they solving equations using algebra. That one's going to require a graphing calculator. It is on the core transfer library list. And it's primarily what's required if you're going to go through the STEM major, because a lot of those STEM majors might take a higher level, like the engineering majors for sure, they're going to go up into calculus. They have to do this route. Whereas Math 103 includes a finance, they do like a mortgage project, they do linear algebra, some more graphing of lines, and then probability and statistics. A scientific calculator is required for that one, not necessarily a graphing calculator. It too, though, is on the core transfer library. We've really worked to make that one more accessible to go to other colleges. Ball State really likes our Math 103. USI really likes our Math 103. So within the state of Indiana, both of these courses are on the core transfer library list. But students that's not in a STEM major, this might be a good route for them as an alternative. Okay. Anybody have any questions on those two?
Gay, did you mention the out-of-state thing?
Yeah, if you, we were going to say, just if we deal with athletes, I advise the boys basketball team. I typically route them through Math 102 because a lot of times we don't know where they're going and they could be going out of state. So Math 102 is pretty transferable across the state lines. It's pretty a standard college level class. I will say another thing though, to just think about, if you have a student that took Math 102 and did not pass it, let's say they made a D, so they didn't make the required C, but they passed it with a D, and they're like, I do not want to do that class again, and they have the option to do Math 103, you could take them through Math 103 and let that meet their math requirement, and then let the Math 102 fill in as one of their electives. Now, chances are strong that it would not transfer, because if it's a D, many colleges will not take Ds. But as far as completing their degree with VU, it will fulfill a UCC credit. So that is an option for them if they took Math 102 and then just like, I don't want to do that again, you could go a different route and let them go through Math 103. If your major will allow that. Mandy, you want to add something?
Well, I just, along all those lines, even though these are transferable courses, 102, 103 across the state of Indiana, and as Gay said, many will take that as their math. Just for instance, IU, they're going to want finite. So here's the confusing part. They will transfer as an elective then, and then they're going to have to go ahead and take a math credit. So it's kind of deceiving when we say that they'll transfer. Some colleges in the state, they'll take them as complete math credit, and others it'll be an elective. So you just kind of have to make sure the student knows where they want to go and look into that.
It's a great point. Yep. Okay. Now for the technical pathway, which is an ASCT degree. Now, there are some ASCT degrees, I'm gonna make sure I say this up front, that do require Math 102 or Math 103, like cybersecurity is an ASCT degree that requires Math 103. So there are some, but for many of the ASCT degrees, you may do a technical math. So the pathway there would be Math 008 if they test into that beginning level, and then they would go into MATT 109 with the pairing of 019. MATT is 109 is business math. Now they can also take MATT 107 if they want to do that one, or if you're talking to that student and they're considering maybe doing a bachelor's degree, that would be the route to take them through. Then if they pass the 107, it would meet the technical degree. But then if they decide later to go on towards a bachelor's degree, then they would be prepped and ready for that MATH level. So just something to pay attention to, and maybe have that discussion with the student when you're talking with them. Things to note about the ASCT degrees, and these classes, again, need to be passed with a C or higher. One of the things that we'll get called on sometimes is like, I'm trying to put a student in business math and it's not letting me go. I'm getting a prerequisite. And usually I'll say, let me look at the student. What's their English level? So one thing to kind of put on your radar, if they tested into English 008, if they tested into English 008, they cannot go into business math until they get past that English 008. So just make sure you're aware there is a prerequisite. They have to be higher than English 008. They have to be at the 010 with distance ed or 079 English level to qualify for business math, MATT 109. If a student previously took business math and then they decide that they want to change to the AS transfer track, then they can either they can go back and take MATT 107 and 017, and then that business math could count as an elective for that. On a tech math, I believe that's correct, on an ASCT, or they can request an AccuPlacer retake through the math chair. So there are their options for them. Now, just to kind of review, out the pairing of their, if they are, I can't read the whole thing, Karen, hang on, let me see. If Karen Brazelton said, can students still take MATT 107 or MATT 109 without the pairing of the correct if they are at the level of MATT? Yes. Are these two courses still offered as standalone classes? Yes, they are. Yes.
So a student could qualify for MATH level with the COREC and MATT level standalone at the same time. It would depend which one you choose would be based on what degree they're going for.
Yeah, and that would be having the conversations. That's a great question, Tom, and we're going to address that right now with distance ed. No, co-rec classes are not available online, and we've got that in the notes coming up. That again, I would have the discussion with the student though, if they think, if you've got a student that's fresh out of college, fresh out of high school, and they were pretty strong in math, I'm going to have the discussion with them to consider taking the MATH pathway just to give them options down the road if they decide they want to get a bachelor's degree, because it's a lot easier to tackle college algebra or even the quantitative reasoning right after high school than it is if they decide 5 years down the road that they want to come back and take and pursue a bachelor's degree. Trying to come up with college algebra at that point sometimes is much more difficult for them. So if they're leaning that way at all, then I would encourage them if we think they can handle the math.
Hey, Gay,
yes.
Evan Sievers, and I don't know if this may be a question from Mandy. I know the COREC on campus, the math 107 and 017, if you pass that with the C or better, then you can go into the MATH CORECs. If you take MATT 107 standalone and pass that with a certain grade, can that feed into MATH, or they need to go? So like, for example, you're saying we have a student business management that technically only requires technical math, but we know that they have plans on going on to the BS technology business management leadership program. So we say do 013, 016, math 1 and 2. It's going to be easier for you when you get into bachelor's. You don't have to pick up extra classes or like.
If they take 107 standalone online and get a C or better, it still only qualifies them to get into the COREC, which you don't offer online.
Gotcha.
So rather than going backwards and saying, okay, now you got to take 016, you can call me and I'll approve an AccuPlacer retake at that point, which that's given them another, and then if they don't get a higher score, then they'd have to probably go back to 016.
And then, so potentially to be cleaner, I mean, if they test into MAT 109, or 107, but they qualify for 016, it's probably better off just having them go ahead and take 016, then they guarantee go in. And then the question then maybe becomes if there is a line where they can qualify for the technical math, but that would put them in 013 if they're on the low end. So that's what comes into. Gotcha.
Well, that 013 and 016 too, Evan, they build on each other pretty well. So that probably is a better tracking, don't you think, Mandy, for them? Yeah.
Most students now, I mean, especially those business related, since that bachelor's can accept a lot of them.
That's a great.
Just say, do you have any, even if it's a small kernel of thought that you may go into a bachelor's, if you test it high enough, or go ahead and do, because it's going to be more beneficial down the road.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Sometimes those business bachelors even want them to have like survey of calculus.
Yeah. Okay, so there, this is the, for the MATH level, if they're gonna do MATH, they have to do the O10, O13, and then O16 level. Things to note about these, just the same thing, they still have to have a C or higher, and like Tom already asked, do we have the CORECs? We have not figured out a way to offer the CORECs at the distance ed, through distance ed, so they are not offered online at this point in time.
Gay, another point to that, I hate to keep interrupting, but
No,
I
no,
will,
that's, go ahead.
anybody that places a student in any, and I'm sure Evan will be shaking his head, and Diane, anytime you place a student in a distance ed course, no matter what that is, the distance ed department needs to know that, because they send them, though they're not a full distance ed student, even if you're just putting them in one distance ed class, they need to know that, because they send them opening emails about what's required for distance education. Is that correct, Evan? Am I?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have students, I mean, we'll have instructors ask for overrides, and then we'll normally just default do that, send it out. But we strongly encourage anybody that enrolls someone into a distance ed class to let us know, either by emailing, basically by emailing Vicki Burgess. She sends out those notices and just basically confirms them that they're in an online class, how online works, reiterating that they're not self-paced. They have explicit due dates you have to meet throughout the term, how to access classes, and like just unique stuff that's unique to distance ed. And that's simply, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Literally just say, email her and say, I enrolled this student with their A number in distance ed classes for this term, so that she can then send out that email. And
Okay,
I'll put in her email address in the chat.
that'd be great, Evan, thank you. The MATT pathway, the ASTT pathway for distance ed would be Math 010, then 013. So it starts the same way, and then they can go into MATT 107 or 109. So that's either that applied math or the business math. Okay, any questions? Oh, so let's go through those things to note there. Definitely 100 level, you still need that C or higher. If a student has taken MATT 107 or 109 standalone, again, changes, then they're going to need to either take Math 016. This kind of goes back to what they were just talking about, or request an Accuplacer retest from the math chair, or if they are moving, the student is coming onto campus, which sometimes that's what they do at that point, they can take 102, 022 on campus, because no co-requisites are offered through distance ed. Okay. Any questions so far about the math pathways?
I would just throw in that at the sites that cannot offer the CORECs, they drew the traditional pathways for
They do?
math. It's yeah, they do.
Distance ed, right?
No, they don't. No. I mean no. It's they just go through the traditional old pathway. Once they end up in 016 and then jump into typically 103 or 102.
So it's like the math on distance ed, right? So they do 01, 01, 010, 013, 016. Are you talking about ASL?
ASL,
Yeah.
yeah.
ATC, I want to say they might have a correct now. If anybody's from the ATC site and can correct that, let
I'm
me
pretty
know.
sure Ina's teaching 107. Yeah, I think they do.
I'm pretty sure they have a co-rec up there now, so. Okay, so we're gonna look a little bit at, we're gonna make you do a little bit of placement practice, and we're gonna talk about a few things with placement. So we pulled a student's scores. Now we've been talking, and I'm still gonna encourage you to go to DegreeWorks, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about dealing with incoming freshmen, because that's what we're gonna be seeing a lot of this summer. It is good to go to their test scores and really look. So if I pull a test score, the test scores page up, and I look, and all I see is one set of scores, it doesn't tell me a whole lot. Whereas when I pull this one up, this particular student, I can look right away and see this student's taken the Accuplacer, and right away I see the GPA Okay, now the great thing is the GPA, that has made that so much easier with English. And a lot of these incoming early freshmen for sure already have that 2.5 GPA. And so they're going to qualify for English 101 just using that. So that's very helpful. Right away, I'm like, okay, they're good on English and for English because of the reading in English. For math gets a little bit trickier. If they have the high school GPA with a 2.5 and they passed Algebra 2, this is what you're going to see. And that will qualify them for either standalone tech math or Math 102 022. Okay, now one of the things that I like to look at with the scores though is I will also come up and look at, sorry, I'm looking at acupuncture grades are immediately on my view, but are they updated in? Okay, we're gonna talk about that. Yes, Jeff, if you'd hit DegreeWorks and Process New, then it should pull in all of that new information. So we're gonna talk about that just a minute.
Okay, somebody just asked about international students.
That's a great question, Emily. I do not know the answer to that. If somebody had asked me that question, Emily, I would say you need to talk to Emily. So I'm not sure about that. Joan, do you know the answer to the last question about using high school GPA with international students?
We have to use a GPA from a US high school here.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question because I didn't know the answer to that one right away.
Yeah, that was my understanding too. And so we also have to keep watch for students who are in temporary protective status or DACA who perhaps didn't attend high school here, because some of the students are residents, but they didn't attend high school here. So
those students we would encourage to take the AccuPlacer, or if they have SAT or ACT scores that we can look at.
yeah,
So going back to this student here, one of the things I would pay attention to is looking at their QAS score here, the 247, that would put them in a co-rec math with math like Math 102 022 or Math 103 023. And
I was going to say real quick, if you guys want to follow along with the test scores, I did share the placement chart in the chat. If you guys want to look at that, it can be kind of confusing, so don't let it overwhelm you.
yeah, I'm really kind of looking at, because the placement chart can be so, well, if you want to pull it up, Megan, and can you show it?
I can if I stop sharing and
Stop sharing. Okay. So if you look at the placement chart, it can be so confusing to try to figure out. And we do super score. So we take the highest level from each of the tests. And that's what and whatever they test in at the highest level, that's what we use. So it can get kind of confusing. I just wanted to look at this page for a minute, because it is helpful to know when you're talking to a student to say, hey, you're at a 247. You might want to consider retaking the AccuPlacer to see if you could raise that score to a 255. But what's comforting to me is to look at there are two sets of scores, and even this one is going to be, it won't help me for placement. But these two both put them in needing a co-requisite. And so when I get a couple of scores showing me that the student might need developmental, I feel better about their placement. I think it's going to be more accurate. So it doesn't hurt to start with these test scores. But now I want to go to the next page. You should go to DegreeWorks, especially when you go to that test scores and you see a ton of scores. It's like, oh, this will take me all day to try to figure out. We've really worked to improve DegreeWorks so that you can come in and hit refresh now and process new. When you do that, that's why we've got these in big red buttons up here, because you should do that so that it pulls in the newest information. It pulls in the newest scores. It pulls in any transfer credit that they've taken, so that all that updates right then. And then you can look right here in this block down here that the test score placement is there. This student is English 101 ready. And then they can either take the Math 102 022, Math 103 023, or Math 112 032. Now, the one thing you want to make sure of when you look at the DegreeWorks is you need to be at the right degree level, because it's going to match up based on the degree level. So if the student's major isn't right, you need to do a what if and change it to the correct major so that the placement block will match up with what if it's an ASCT degree or if it's an AS transfer degree. Okay.
Just another note on that, Gay, it is also unique to their campus. So if you're inheriting someone from VDE or vice versa, someone on campus is switching, you then have to go in and look at the scores bar, their campus being updated in Banner to reflect the
That's a great
Good.
point, Evan. Thank you. Yes, for sure. So it pays attention to those things as well, is what he's saying. If you're dealing with the distance ed student, it's going to tell you the distance ed courses they would place into. So it's going to pay attention to their campus code. So looking at, here's another one. You know, I'm going to give you a minute and see, would you know where this student placed by looking at their test scores? You can see that this student took English, and I've lost my, hang on. I lost my dates because it was blocked by the Zoom pictures. You can see where they tested, you know, in 2017, and then again in 2018, and then again in 2019. So you want to look at those. But so for example, the English score, I mean, he took his English score, or she, I'm not sure which one it is, took a score up, you know, to 107 from 65. So definitely they were English ready. And then, but that old EA score was pretty low from from February of 2018. But in February of 2019, they definitely did a big jump. They might've been taking a math that helped them out, but that quantitative reasoning score certainly went up. So this is a great picture of this student where you can see where it was before and then when they retested. So then if we go to the next slide and look at their placement on DegreeWorks, then you'll see that this student doesn't need any developmental. Okay, so we really do encourage you to use DegreeWorks, especially if you've got a student that has a ton of scores. Definitely use the DegreeWorks. Make sure you hit refresh and process new though, so that you get all that newest information in there. And make sure that you've got the correct major in the DegreeWorks as well, because that could be skewed if you have the wrong major. Okay, any questions about math placement or math pathways? Okay, too bad we don't have our polling. We had some polling questions for you, but we're going to keep going. Looking at the English. English placement, English is clean there, lines up a great deal. Now a student can go right from English 008 to English 101 079. Again, things to note about them, they need a C or higher in that 100 level. So one thing, this goes for the co-recs for math as well as for English. If they don't pass both of them with C's or higher, then they need to repeat both classes. So let's say they make D's in both or F's in both, they need to repeat English 101 and 079. If they do pass the co-requisite class 079, but not the 100 level, they may repeat the English 101 standalone. Okay, they don't have to repeat the developmental if they passed it. If they fail the developmental but pass the 101 level, they've met their English requirement and they can move on to any other upper level classes and any other upper level math, English classes or math for that matter. Okay. The distance ed pathway is a little bit different. It's 007 and then 010 and then 101. Again, they do not have the co-requisites on the distance ed for the English pathway. So they would do 007, then 010, and then one, it was 007, 010, yeah, and then 101. That's correct. Okay, same thing. They need a C or higher, and then they don't have the co-recs. So let's do one practice on placement with English. You can look, this student has some ACT scores, has an old SAT score, has an evidence-based score. You know, if I see an evidence-based score in the 500s, that's what I'm kind of looking for. I'm going to check it with the chart to see if it's close, because that evidence-based score, I can't remember, it has to be 510 or higher. So if I see it in the 500s, I'm going to double check it. But right away, hopefully you notice right away, there's that GPA for English and reading. So that student's great, good to go on English 101. Now for math, the student right now is at English, it has the high school GPA with Algebra 2. So that would put him at Math 102 022, but he has an ACT score that's higher in math at 24. So that's going to help him not have to have developmental in math. So if you go to the DegreeWorks again, which is our next slide, you'll see this student doesn't need any developmental at all. You know, it's just important. Placement is so crucial because we certainly want to get a student accurately placed. We do not want to place them in a developmental class they don't need. So it is worth looking. I mean, it's worth talking to them about whether they should retest. And we're going to talk about the retesting policy in just a minute. Or, you know, or if you see several sets of scores that are putting them all in developmental, then typically I'll tell the student, you know, that just might mean you really could use this class and it's going to just benefit you. That's why we have it there. So it's worth having that discussion with them about that placement. Any questions on the placement or pathways for English or math? Evan, go ahead.
Just a comment on, since with next level jobs being a thing over the last few years and there being a resurgence with students in CGs and CPCs, the placement polls a little bit differently in those programs. Basically, once they hit the minimum threshold generally required for a CPC or CG, it will say no developmental needed. But you really have to, the best tool I've found is just do a what if for the AS or ASCT degree that builds off of that CG or CPC to see what their accurate placement would be in. So for example, you may have a program that requires Math 103, but the CG, it'll say no developmental needed when they really placed into like co-requisite or something.
Right.
So if you're dealing with a student CG, the best, and you know they're going to go on, well, not necessarily if you know they're going to go on, but it, like say you're doing CG and welding, that builds into ASCT welding. If you do a what if under the ASCT welding, it should reflect what the best placement is for them. It's just a little unique thing about DegreeWorks and how it's programmed.
Yeah, Emily, your question is, she said, it is my understanding that if a student does not qualify for English 101 based on their high school GPA, then they will not have a GPA note for English. That is correct. You will not see that where we're seeing that they qualify it, it would not be there. So if you see those GPAs in the test scores, then that meant that they did meet the 2.5 requirement.
I'm scrolling back to show them something. So like this student that we looked at earlier, it's not there.
Right.
All they have is test scores. So if it's, it would be there if they had the high school GPA thing.
Gay, I've got a question. Hi, this is Gretchen.
Hi.
Hi, on one of those, and I think it was just before the slide Megan put up, but it said evidence-based for the
Mhm.
English test
Right.
score. Okay,
Yes.
so that, yes, that evidence-based read writing score. I'm looking at the placement chart. And once upon a time, I'm sure I knew this, but I'm sorry, I just can't, I don't see that language on this placement chart anywhere.
It's under the new SAT at the English 101 level. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm looking back because mine's pinned up here, but it says evidence-based R/W510 or higher. And it's on the English 101 line.
Oh.
Do you see it?
Okay, yes, sorry.
It's-
Okay,
it's-
okay,
it's
so
on
there's
there,
nothing
yeah.
in the heading. Okay, so that's what I was looking for. I was looking for something in a heading, so, all
I
right.
believe the evidence-based is part of the new SAT.
It is.
So that's
Okay.
where you see it under that column in the new SAT.
Okay, thank
Um,
you.
Kara had a question. She says, I have seen the M1C advisor under test placement in DegreeWorks before. What does that mean?
That typically means, Kara, we don't have test scores on them.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't, in other words, DegreeWorks doesn't know how to place them. They need to talk to the advisor. You might see it a lot with math right now because maybe there's no math score, but they qualified for English because of their high school GPA, or maybe they didn't, and not for they didn't take Algebra 2. You might see that pop up. So they'll need to take the Accuplacer in math. Or you need to look at them and see, you know, but that's typically the case, is that there's no score to place them.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions on those?
I'm sorry, go back to that just one before. Yes, okay, so when I see this GPA, I just don't know how to read this. It says VU proficiency reading
Okay.
11
Gretchen,
GPA.
Gretchen, just take that. I mean, really what they did was they tied that into an old coding that they had. So read that like coding, like you don't have to know that, but if you see GPA, like reading and then GPA, English GPA, that means they met the requirement for the high school GPA to go into English 101.
Yep.
Okay.
That proficiency was tied into the old, I mean, you've been here long enough, Gretchen, enough to know, remember the old reading 011 and English 011?
Oh, yes, I do.
So what
The
that's
horror.
saying, so what that's saying is this student met that proficiency and is ready for English 101. It was the simplest way for them to code it in DegreeWorks.
Same thing with the math.
Yeah.
It'll say that VU proficiency math 013 GPA/algebra 2.
So it's saying they're at that level. They've met that proficiency and are ready to go. It's just a way that
College level, period. I don't have to worry about anything else. That means college level, period.
the
Well, the math one means college level with the COREC
yeah, or college level for tech.
or tech. Yeah.
Bottom line, every time I talk to anybody that's above me about this screen, they say you shouldn't be using this screen. You should be using DegreeWorks.
Well, the reason I wanted to show it, Mandy, though, was because sometimes it does tell you
I know.
as far as these incoming freshmen. But that's why I'm also saying you should go to DegreeWorks, because that's why we've coded it. We've made DegreeWorks where it should code correctly and show you what the placement block should be.
Yep.
So we do want to encourage you, especially like I said, when you go and you see a ton of scores, go to Refresh Now and Process New and look at it so that it can do all the coding for you and not have to try to figure out those scores.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about just AccuPlacer testing, things that you might need to know if you're working a Start VU or as you deal with freshmen, if you're advising any this summer. Go ahead and go, Megan. The retesting policy, students may take the AccuPlacer a total of 3 times in a 12-month cycle, starting June the 1st every year, okay? So, and they can retest again 14 days or later after the last test date. And that has changed in the last couple of years. So just to make you aware, if you talk to a student, and let's say the student, I mean, I do, like I said, DegreeWorks will show you the placement, but it is good to look at their scores. Like, let's say the student had a 248 and a 249 in English, and that's the only thing you saw. I mean, they need a 250 to go in English 101. So that's a student you would want to encourage to retest. So that is where kind of another reason why I wanted you to look at the test score pages, because it does tell a picture that part of our advising should be what's best for them. If my kid is sitting in a chair in your office and they had that high a score and they were really close to that English 101, I would want you to tell them, you need to take the test again and see if you can bump it up, and then, you know, see if we don't know if it was just a bad testing day or, you know, if their abilities are great or to get into that English 101. So it is worth it to let them retake a test if they're close like that, rather than spend money taking a developmental that maybe they don't need. If they test again and they still need the developmental, to me, that's also a good sign that says you're going to need this class. It's going to be beneficial to you.
Yeah. And then I think sometimes I run into this with a student who was testing into math 008, and then he had driven like 2 hours to campus, was exhausted, took the test, was nervous because it was the first time he'd ever taken it and hadn't done any kind of study material before. And so then we sat down with him and said, okay, retake it virtually so you can be better rested. Here's some study materials. And then he ended up testing up into the next level so he doesn't have to take 008. So
the retest must be completed before the first day of classes. So encourage, you know, if you're seeing students this summer that need to test, that's something that our office will handle too. If a student retests, you can refer them to the Student Success Center. If they test up, we will adjust their schedules as needed throughout the summer if they test up in English or math from where they were previously. The placement testing, the information that you might need, because again, right now you should be telling, if you're talking to a student that needs to retest, they're going to need to either go to a VU campus or they can do it virtually. If they're going to do it virtually, they're going to need to email accuplacer@vinu.edu. That helps them make the arrangements. Or they can call the Vincennes campus to sign up, or the ATC site to sign up for appointments, or the Jasper campus actually has, they can click right there on the website and go straight there to make an appointment with the Jasper campus. There are also helpful links, so that this down here, the AccuPlacer study guide, are practice sites that can help them prepare for the test if they want to practice. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sanders. The ASL and Deaf Studies program in Indianapolis also offers acupuncture testing.
Gay, if students test virtually at this point, who picks up that testing fee?
We do. Yeah,
Okay.
Vincent VU unless that's changed from last year. I have not been told differently. We did. Okay, and so does the Lafayette site. So all of it, so those sites are not on the website. I don't know if you guys, if Tom and Cynthia, if you guys want to get those added to the website, and if you email me, maybe what to do, I can try to get that help, see if we can get those sites added. Okay, Cynthia, if you email that information to me, I will forward it to Dave Sanders, and we'll see if we can get that added to the website. That's great to know. That's great for our office to know too, because sometimes we ask students where they're located. Okay, good. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is the Fresh Start program. This is where we were going to poll people, but how many of you, I'd love to see your hands or whatever, but there's no way I can see you all. If you're familiar with the Fresh Start program, who should I send an email to? Send it to me, Cynthia G. Walthall at vinu.edu. I can, Megan, can you put that in the chat for me?
Yeah, I was about to do that.
Okay, I can do it. Never mind.
I got it. It's in there.
Awesome, thank you.
I don't know what happened to the screen.
Okay, there we go.
It went.
Okay, so the Fresh Start program has been around a little while, but I wanted to make sure that we reviewed this a little bit with you, because you might run into a student, maybe it was a student that you dealt with before that's returning. It's a great opportunity for students who maybe came here as a young college student, really messed up, didn't do well, and then has set out for like 4, 5, 6, or sometimes 10 years, right? And they want to come back, and they've matured and they're ready to handle it. But now they've dug this hole that they didn't do well when they came earlier and didn't do well. That is the type of student we're looking for in the Fresh Start program. I'm using my example. I worked with a readmit a few years ago that when she was at VU the first time, she was homeless and living out of her car. And so, she did not do well at all. She had this hole that she had dug, that her GPA was low and bottomed out. Well, she came in as a readmit, and she had matured and she was ready to do college, and she was serious about it. And her first semester made a 4.0. Well, she's the type of student that the Fresh Start program really was started for, because we want to be able to help them kind of reprogram and reboot. That's really what it's for, to reboot. So I want to kind of just hit on some things that we do that the Fresh Start program involves. It allows returning students to have all D's, F's, and WF's grades removed from their GPA calculation. And then the GPAs, they'll be recalculated one time for students. So we're not going to do it over and over and over, but they'll reboot it one time. And then the courses but one thing to note, the courses removed from the GPA calculations cannot be used to complete a degree. And I'll tell you, I had 2 students I was working with last semester, and one of them was returning, and the Fresh Start program was going to be good for him. The other was returning, and he had like a 1.9 GPA, but he had several classes that were D's that were meeting the requirement. And so if we had done the Fresh Start with him, he would have had to repeat all of those classes. And he had a better chance of getting his GPA above that 2.0 with the classes he had left. So for him, the Fresh Start program was not the best route. He had to decide that. I just made sure I told him what the options were. So that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind. Fresh Start students are not eligible to graduate with honors, and excluded course grades will still be listed on the student's transcript. It'll still be there, but they'll take it out of the GPA. And so those courses can still be considered for determining acceptance into a competitive or restrictive programs. So who's eligible for Fresh Start? It's a returning VU student who has not taken any courses at VU for at least 36 consecutive months. So they had to have been out for at least 3 years. Okay, a lot of these are academically disqualified students, so they end up coming through our office. They still have to go through the readmit process. There's still students that we work with, but sometimes students that are returning, and maybe they dealt with you years ago, and so they reach out to you as the advisor. I just kind of wanted to make you aware of the program, that it's an option for some students. Where do they go to apply for it? It's when they're reapplying to come to VU. There's a question there that says, I'm applying for a VU fresh start and understand that my GPA will be recalculated during the second week of the semester. So it is in that application process that they can click yes, they're interested in the Fresh Start program, but we kind of want to make advisors aware that that program is available out there. Any questions on that?
Who does the GPA recalculation?
That's all
That
done.
you?
That's done through the records office.
Okay, and you said that the those courses remain on their record, but the GPA is not considered. Is there a flag by them or something if we're looking?
That's a great question. Any Ds, Fs, WFs would go away. I think if you saw it on their unofficial, you'll see that it's excluded. So you'll see an E where it's taken out, but the course would still be listed there, just like you would if you saw a failing grade before. That's my understanding of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on that? Okay. All right, holds. There are different types of holds, and we just kind of wanted to review on some of those. We've added this to the centralized location. I'm going to show you here in a minute, but just so because there are more and more holds, we ran into this top one last summer. We were like, what's a dog hold? That was a new one for us, and it was one that admissions put on. I did talk to Sarah McLennan in admissions, and I'm not sure it's going to be used this year, but I kind of wanted to make you aware of it. It was where students, they needed their final transcript with their date of graduation. I think COVID kind of messed some of that up last year, where they were struggling to get some of that in. So they had put what was called a dog hold on students. It was a provisional admit hold.
Oh, I'm in a Zoom meeting.
Someone have a question? No? Okay. So you might have that might pop up under provisional admit as well. Or again, you might see that PA, the provisional admit hold for, and sometimes that's for a student that maybe is missing test scores, or it could be something else that they're missing through admissions where they'll put a provisional admission hold on them. The Student Success Center hold, the only time you'll see that for us, the only holds we put on students are for the readmits. They have to do their meetings and their progress reports with us and have that 2.0 at midterm for that hold to be lifted, for them to be registered for the next semester. So that's the only time you'll see a Success Center hold on a student like that. But we kind of want to just make sure we hit that. Now, just so you know, Megan had learned because she's fairly new at advising as well. And she was like, I didn't know till the other day that you could see holds. So we thought we would add that, because sometimes we assume advisors know things and maybe they don't. They're on degree work. So you see the holds in degree works, but you also can see them here. So here's a student that has some holds on them. And then Megan, you added, there you go. So here's what you would see when you click on view holds for that student. And then did you do the degree works page too? Right, it's there. Yeah, the next one would show what degree work shows, which is registration and transcript registration hold.
Yeah, the reason that I thought it might be helpful to have this in here is because I was just looking at degree works, and so I saw registration and transcript and just thought, oh, there's something wrong, they need to talk to admissions, when really it's a collections hold and they need to talk to the bursar. So I think that's helpful to look there.
Okay, any questions on holds?
So basically, the registration holds that it's got marked on degree works, it's just telling us what it's holding, what it's preventing them from doing.
Pretty much,
then-
yes. Yeah,
And then Banner tells us why they have the hold, the reason for it.
yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
So like that one that says health office is about immunizations normally.
Okay.
Once upon a time, we were not really to address that stuff. We were to tell them where or to whom they needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that was basically it. There was a bunch of HIPAA stuff, if that's, but the privacy concerns, I'm assuming those privacy concerns are still there.
Well, you're still, to me, I mean, I have never been told that, but to me, you're still, I still say, here's the office you need to go to, and we can't register you until you take care of that hold. That's basically how I say it. I mean, there is a hold, and I mean, I have said to a student, it looks like there's a balance that you need to pay off, so you'll need to go to financial services.
Right.
Or
this
there's a health
basic-
office hold. If there's a HIPAA law that's broken, that's a new one on me. I don't know. Does anybody else have?
I probably have the wrong acronym for that because those things make me nuts, but It's, yeah, basic
FERPA.
information. But
FERPA,
thank you,
FERPA.
thank you.
Yep, 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 thinking of.
But that was the standard once upon a time. So for new people, I would just say basic, simple information,
Sure.
tell them the office and then disengage.
You know, along those lines, while you brought that up, something that we did learn in our office early on, and I see it on occasion, and I'm going to caution you on it. Do not put a student's A number in the subject line of an email, because that's kind of violating FERPA. You can put it in the, I mean, my understanding is we can put it on campus in the body of an email, but you cannot put it in the subject line of an email. So be careful with the A numbers there. That's just a side. That was just a free little piece of advice that you got there.
Hey,
Okay,
what's the policy on that when if the student initiates the contact and they list their?
Oh,
I usually try and take it out.
yeah.
If they provide to me, I try and take it out. But if they provide it in their initial email, do we have to delete that?
I probably would just take it. I would definitely take it out of the subject line before I responded back to them. Yeah, just and change it to something else, or put, response from BU or something like that. If you see it there, but if the student put it there, they're not breaking the FERPA log like we would be.
It's on them anyways, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And if someone can figure out how to do that in Gmail, how to change the subject line, that would be
Okay,
great.
you can.
I haven't done that. That's funny. I haven't done that yet.
So,
When you're replying to someone, you have to click the 1 second. So down by it's kind of hidden, but when you're replying to someone, you have to click the drop down arrow that's right next to their name. And then, like right now I'm responding to Karen Mundy email, not saying it's to Karen Mundy. There'll be a little arrow drop down that you can click. Then you have to hit edit subject.
Okay.
And then it will let you change.
Thank
But
you.
whenever it does that, it will sever the discussion. So it will treat it as a brand new email when it sends it to the person. So
Oh.
then if you're wanting to file it, you'd have to refile it again instead of it being in the.
I think we all have a
Okay.
lot to learn with
Okay.
the new Gmail.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to sidetrack
That's
there.
okay.
Thank you, Evan.
That's okay. Okay, one last thing I'm going to go through with you, and that is in the advising committee and in our office, we started talking about sometimes advising resources, they're hard to find because they're in different locations. Honestly, it came up because Mike Gress called me and said, hey, where would I find this? And hey, where would I find this? And I'm having trouble finding this. And I'm like, it's really not a bad idea. Maybe we need to centralize some of these things. So I took it to the advising committee, and then I took it to our awesome MIC group, or are they still called MIC?
IT.
Anyway, I'll name them: Terry Bilski, Eric Woodfork, and Roger Bromett. I think it is Bromett. Those three have made this happen for me in the last couple of days. So I'm very thankful because it was just a conversation and they made it go. Go ahead and go, Megan, to the next one. So we have centralized, and one of the number one things that we had people ask us about was trying to get to the registrar's forms and where do you find them? So I hope you're paying attention because we've really worked to get this where it's going to be easy access for you. And this has all happened today where we've got extra access. So if you log into your MyVU, under the faculty menu where the provost picture is, you can go from out on that page, or now we've also offered it in self-service banners. So Megan, go ahead and go to the next one. So here's where it is on the MyVU page under advising and registration, and then advising resources. And then in self-service banner, we have added it right underneath where you do register, add or drop classes. Then you would click on advisor resources. And I think Megan's going to take you there in just a minute. And
So it's right here.
yep, go there.
And then
And so then it takes you to these links, and here's where we packed. So whoever asked me about the pathways earlier, so click on the first one, Megan. The registrars, no, go back to the registrar's forms. So here are those registrar forms when you're looking for the course sub form or the petition to graduate form or the drop ad form, and it's linked straight to the registrar's link. So as they update those forms, it should update automatically. And then we've also added the math pathways for the campuses as well as for distance ed. They're there. The Holds reference, the Englishes are there. Then go down to the Holds reference sheet is there. Megan,
Sorry, I'm loving all the stuff in the chat.
there you go. Now, if you notice, I showed you where the holds were, but we've added even contact numbers if you want to give that to tell the students where they should go, how they could contact them. You know, like with immunizations, Peggy Milligan kind of handles that, and she's only here part-time. So the best thing for them to do is to email them. So I think that that will be, yeah, I'm glad that people, we feel like it will be helpful for us as well. So we understand that feeling. And then go back now, navigating EduNav. By the way, high school GPA placement Q&A, we put that sheet together a year ago. We put that there. If you guys come along with other things that you think would be good to have there, please email me and I'll see what I can do. Navigating EduNav and then navigating EduNav for general studies is a Google Slides that we put together for the people that are already implementing EduNav. So those instructions will be there that you can go to. The other thing that we will do, my goal for this month of May is for my office to update the advisor manual, and we will put that in this link as well. Okay, so you can practice when we get off going into your MyVU. We felt like we wanted it, Megan, if you go back one, I felt like I really wanted it in self-service banner more so than the outside. I don't know how many of you go in from outside the MyVU on the MyVU page, but when you're in self-service banner and you're in there and you think, oh, I need to get a course sub form. How can I get there? What would be the quickest way? And a lot of times you have to go out and go to a different site. We felt like this would be helpful to have that here. So it's under advisor resources right there underneath the DegreeWorks page. I mean, DegreeWorks link.
This is Tammy Dominguez.
Yes.
Can you add the AccuPlacer placement?
Do you know that it's on there already?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I guess I missed
If you
it.
go to test scores, right there where Megan was, and then go right down there to placement chart, it's there.
Oh, I just thought under resources, since all the resources are right there, it'd be nice to have it there
If you
too.
want me to see if I
Not a
can
bad
get
idea.
it moved to there, I can.
If you would, I'd like that. And then that way our advisors can find it easily too.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, not a bad idea. I like that.
Okay, that's pretty much it for me. I hope that you guys learned something new today, or maybe reviewed something that you needed to do. If you think of other questions that maybe, I have a poll question, but we didn't get it in there. I don't think we can even add it right now, because again, I had it on the wrong link. I tell you what, if you wouldn't mind even responding in the chat, this will tell me, would you guys be interested in a Q&A advising session at some point? Do you think that that would be helpful? I know that you can't do
Hey.
anonymous. What, can you do it? Can
Hey,
you?
Tom's got a question.
Oh, yeah?
Regarding English scores, looking at an applicant who must take English 101 with 019 when considering him in an ASCT, but if I change it to a CG, it looks like he can take English 101. I think I'd have to look at that person's DegreeWorks to see what you're seeing, Tom.
Tom, that's probably what's happening, what I referenced earlier. CGs are basically, because not all CGs, well, most CGs will have English or math, but not all CGs or CPCs will have math or English requirements.
Right.
And they basically have to test out of the bottom rung of English and math to hit the minimum. But if it still requires English 101, and if they're in the ASCT, it says they need English 101 and 079, that's still the case for the CG. It's just that DegreeWorks is just simply looking if they've met that minimum threshold. So it's saying developmental is done. But that's where you need to go, especially if they're going to, and correct me, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting if you're precision machining or advanced manufacturing, but you need to do the what if and that to see what their placement is, and then that would still apply for the CG or CPC, because you'll still get, like if you try and put them into just English 101, you'll still get a prereq error or co-req error.
Thanks, Evan. So what you're saying is that basically it's, if you put them in the CG, it's saying they don't need developmental because They
Yeah,
don't have
'cause-
to take that English class.
'cause I think it
Right.
says for a CPC or CG that they just have to have.
Yeah, they just meet the
Uh,
lowest dev ed level.
so
They've
they
got
basically
that lowest
test out
dev
a
ed
008,
proficiency. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not taking consideration if there is an English or a math requirement. So if they didn't need, if there's no English and math, it's just a CPC that's
Mhm.
all major, like specific classes, then they wouldn't have to take anything on top of that. But since they are going into a program that will require English or math, they'll still need to take that co-requisite. It's probably just a coding issue, too many different parts of the thread that they can't account for everything. So that's why, especially if you're doing something that you know they're going to go into an ASCT program, just do a what if for the ASCT or AS program that it builds into, and that should reflect the proper placement for the CG and the associates.
Thanks, Evan.
Okay, it looks like we're about out of time. So if you guys have, does anybody have any other questions? If you want to, I mean, if not, have a great, rest of your day if you need to go. But if you have a question that you want us to still address, we'll stay on for a few minutes and help you.
Okay. Just do what Emily said about the Q&A.
Yeah, I'm looking now.
You'd be interested in sending questions beforehand so it doesn't go on forever and ever and ever.
I've just noticed that there is a tendency when it's a large
Yeah.
meeting that some of the questions tend to be repeated and there tend to be a lot of questions. So that's just my.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, I'll take that. Okay, I hope it was helpful to you guys. I certainly appreciate the comments that you guys are putting in there. So if not, I lost you there for a minute. Megan, you want to stop sharing your screen and then I can.
Yep. Maybe. There it went.
There we go. All right. If there's no other questions, I'll stay on here just for a couple of minutes. If not, have a great day and good luck advising. Our office number is 4451. If you're in the middle of, with someone and you're still not sure about placement or pathway or whatever, call us. We'll be glad to help you any way we can. Okay. Have a good day.
I gave him a uses a soundboard on kind of situation I'm working on. So I got a guy that he's 21st century scholar. He was in the fall. I think he passed one of his 5 classes, and then he took 4 classes this spring and didn't pass any of them, or wasn't expecting to pass any of them. So his big plan was to take all 8 of the classes he failed in the summer.
Wait. Did you take all 8 classes?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
You know
And
what
I-
I'm going to say.
Well, I'm just trying to think if there's a formal because they have the recommended max amount of credit hours in a term based on GPA, but I don't think there's a formal policy that if someone tries to go register in 24 hours, I told him would not suggest that. Our summer is accelerated. If you had trouble doing 5 or 4 classes in 16, you're not gonna be able to do 8. Our bet.
Are you the listed advisor?
Well, it's kind of a weird program situation because he is taking all online classes. He's listed as Jackie Lederman's advisor. So he's an
He doesn't-
IT.
Go ahead.
I would not do that for a student. And I'll tell you, if they ever got around it, I would be like, I would put a message on DegreeWorks that I did not advise that because,
Well, that's what.
and I would tell the student that too. I mean, I wouldn't do it behind their back. I would say, you can go do this. You can get, somebody to put you in it, but I'm gonna make a note that I did not advise you to do it.
Well, and I try not to be I try and make them think the way I'm thinking without just
Right.
telling them why would you do that? It's like, I would not advise that. And we've had people that will do that. Like they want to take 12 credit hours whenever they're on academic probation or something in the
Right.
summer. And then
Yeah.
we used to have them sign a form that would say, there's technically no policy that says, no, you're doing this outside of what we advise.
Right.
So that if they come back to us in 2 months and say, I failed, we can say, we told you not to do that.
Right.
Like a form at the hospital where you're leaving without doctor's permission.
Yeah, so,
Usually I just.
and that wasn't anything the university made. That was just something our office made that said like, hey, you're doing something that's against the advice of our office. You're knowing you're doing that. And I was trying to think of I even talked to Stan. I said, it looked like he had maxed out his loans and 21st Century Scholar. The whole reason he wanted to do this because he knows he's going to lose his 21st Century Scholar if he didn't.
He doesn't
put
have
his
any
credit
dual
out.
credits from high school, does he?
Not that I saw.
Evan, he needs to talk to Ansley. She's not here this week, but Ansley Miller is the 21st Century, and let him see, does he have any banked hours or does he have any other options to try to keep his scholarship?
Well, and I even reached out to Stan because it looked like he had maxed out what was offered to him for the.
Mm-hmm.
I said, even if he enrolls, will he have anything? He says, well, he'll go on suspension. He'll have to appeal that suspension and have to say something other than like COVID's made stuff hard. And then even if they got approved, he wouldn't be approved for anything more than 12 and likely not 12 hours for the summer. So I was trying to think of, I could just give him enough without just like, I'll probably get to a point where I just say, hey, no, we're not doing that.
I mean, I typically would approach it with, our goal is to set you up to be successful. And based on your history and what we've done, I'm concerned about you being successful doing that. I don't really recommend that. That's the way you could approach it. I mean, it is, I guess, their right to spend the money, but it's not.
Yeah,
Tom,
cool. That's what
you have a quick question for me, Tom, and I'll go back to Evan.
Well, it's directly in line with what Evan's talking about. Is there an unofficial ceiling that you like to prevent or enroll no more than so many credits like in summer?
Not that I know of. I mean, but we typically, in my mind, I always discourage more than 9. I mean, more than 9 actually. I mean, definitely we discourage it. Yeah. I don't know if you can. I don't know if there's a policy. I meet with Rick tomorrow, so I don't mind bringing that up to him and just to see.
Okay.
I mean, there's a blurb in the in the catalog that has a recommended max load. I'm guessing that is based off of a fall or spring. But usually, I don't know if there is any type of academic policy that says you can't take this many credit hours in the summer. It's more on a case-by-case basis. If the person is a sterling student and they can do it, more power to them. But in general, and this is looks like a recommendation in the catalog. It says if they have a 4.0, they should not exceed 21 hours, 20 hours of 3.5, 19, 3.0, et cetera. But I'm guessing those are based off of summer or fall. That's why I wish there was a policy I could just go and say no. University says no, but there's not. It's kind of a person by person basis.
He's going to take 24 hours this summer.
Yeah, he's. Well, let's see what I told him. I said
he needs to talk to Ansley because it might be that he could earn his scholarship back, but not in the summer. I mean, I think he needs to have the conversation with her and let her see what she can find out from the state, from 21st Century is first.
What's the 21st Century Scholar rep's name? Yeah.
Her name is well, if you email her, we have a generic email now. It's 21 Scholar Rep, 21 SCHOLARREP at BINU.edu. But her name is Ansley, AYNSLEY Miller, MILLER.
I just put it in the chat, Tom.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
also if you ever forget it, if you type
Did I
in.
spell that right, Gay, in the chat? The 21st Scholar Rep?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, if you ever forget it and just type in Student Success Center Vincennes University into Google and click their link, she's listed among their staff.
Yes,
To know.
she's listed with our staff. Yeah.
And
Okay.
if you ever want to send us, because she has office hours typically, she's off this week, but if they want to stop by the Student Success Center to talk to her in person, they can set up a time to do that as well.
She'll be here all summer with it. She is a current student, but she'll be here all summer with us for maybe 4:30. Other than this, she just graduated with her associate's degree, so she's up going on a little vacation with her family.
Okay, outstanding. Good to know.
Yeah.
This whole thing has been extremely helpful for me, and I've recommended Erica Heath, who helps me screen a lot of the applicants would it be okay if she attends the next meeting on?
Absolutely. Do
Okay.
Can you just forward her the link? Can you forward her? Okay, that
Yeah.
would absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like advisors only or something.
Well, it's supposed to be for advisors, but to me, if she's helping you screen and looking at the scores and the placement, by all means, let her come on. Yeah.
See, I couldn't live without her, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand that for sure.
Yeah.
So do you guys have any other questions?
I think it maybe for Evan, about, something I learned today, or at least I think I heard today, that there's separate I don't know if we call them COREC courses, but like stair-step courses for English, for instance, through distance learning.
Developmental,
Yeah.
their developmental is different through distance ed than it is on campus.
So ours more or less follows what the old model was before COREC was employed. It just minus, it used to be English and reading, but those were merged. So instead of doing like, it used to be English 009 and 011 and like read 009 and read 104 that were like pseudo co-requisites. Now it's straight. Whereas on campus, they would take English 08 with a co-rec. Is that still like Humanities 102 or something? What have you. It would just be English 007, which is Intro to College Reading and Writing 1. And if they pass that, then they take English Intro to College Reading and Writing 2, which is English 010, before they can get into college English composition.
So they would have to take
At least three English classes for an ASCT.
Okay.
So that's that's where if they can get anything, if they can get in the COREC, they can usually speed up that process, get that process done a little sooner.
Okay.
Whereas, and in math, it's even more so because they're at if they test in the bottom level, they're going to have minimum 4 math classes to complete their degree online.
Okay.
Well, and I'd say like the CORECs on campus, you're not necessarily looking at less classes. You're looking at one less semester.
You're getting
You're taking
through
them at
the,
same time.
Okay.
you're getting,
Right.
and you could possibly get
Sometimes it
your,
is less classes. I mean, and it's definitely less credit hours.
but
Okay.
if you're doing that and you're getting do you still take a humanities co-rec with English 08? No.
Not necessarily, no.
So,
They don't make them paired anymore.
but it's also for a student that's probably doesn't like math, like English or math as much, you're looking at them possibly being done 2 semesters. Whereas for us, you still taking a developmental math class your 3rd semester into your program.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm asking these questions is I've got just a handful of applicants who are just like missing the English by 3 points in order to get into 101. And typically I've just had a hard cutoff. You got to be able to get into 101. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to take them. But I'm having to be a little more flexible this time around because I just don't have enough applicants to fill all the positions I have. But I do have some very interested applicants who, like I said, just a hairbreadth away from being able to qualify for English 101.
Would they be starting in the fall?
They will be starting in the fall. They will be on campus. So I guess I could, and this would be the first time I've made this exception, is sign them up for a COREC English course on campus. And
Or you'd have a different, if they miss it just by 3 points, I would suggest retaking the placement exam, see if they can test. They've already
that
done the
was
3.
third. Yeah, that
Okay.
was, no, he progressively made nice leaps with each test, but he just, I was just praying he was going to make it today, but he missed it by 3.
Well, the other thing is
I mean, that's the one, Tom, that I was talking about. If he's taken it 3 times and 3 times tested in developmental, he probably needs the developmental.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the route. Can you do distance ed then as an option for him?
Well, here's basically, if you would allow them to do co-rec in the first semester, that would be one thing. But if you did it as a policy, if they just missed it, like they tested just below, if they took an English 010 over the summer, because we'll have students do that for like selective admission for funeral service, or like their placement on their own is not good enough to get into the program in the fall, but they take some developmental class with us in the summer. And if they pass that in the summer, then they can get into the program in the fall. But depending on if they're a fresh high school graduate, they're likely to not done a FAFSA, may not qualify for funding for that summer. They'd be looking at paying for probably like a $700 class out of pocket. But if they pass that, if that allows them to get directly into your program in the fall, but that is a short turnaround. I think summer term ends in the 5th of.
What's his highest score, Tom? What's the highest score that he's made?
It was on the reading, on the writing portion, he scored a 147, and on the reading, he scored a 168.
So it was the right. They needed 150.
Say that again. Tell me again.
That's-
Laura.
On writing,